Welcome to the Disruptive podcast by Minority Innovation Weekend. Minority Innovation Weekend is a weekend summit dedicated to aiding minority innovators launch tech-focused startups, exploring emerging technologies, and showcasing tech startups that have a minority founder or co-founder. During each episode, we will discuss innovation, news about tech startup, as well as the startup ecosystem, and interview people of color throughout the startup ecosystem.
Welcome to the MIW Disruptive podcast, hosted by Michelle, Sir Walter, and Jerome. Today we have a special guest. Yes, she's a Forbes 30 under 30 social entrepreneur. She is the founder of OnFlow. I'm talking about Claire Coder. How you doing?
Woohoo! I am so glad to be here.
That's great.
We're so excited to have you, Claire. I am really, really excited. Ever since I had the opportunity to meet you through the Tory Burch Foundation, I knew you had already built such a powerful company, but wanted to really utilize this platform at MIW Disrupt podcast to talk about kind of the story of OnFlow and the amazing work that you've done with the company. So would love to kind of just start at the origin. Can you share why you started out OnFlow?
Yeah. Like most entrepreneurs, I started the company out of necessity. I actually was at an event. I got my period in public without the supplies I needed, and I was sitting on the toilet living in despair, trying to scum up a quarter because that's the only way that you can use the coin-operated tampon and pad dispensers. Lo and behold, no one carries around quarters. And so that is when I realized, if toilet paper is offered in bathrooms for free, why aren't tampons and pads? And is there a way to change this? So I was actually in college. I dropped out of college to pursue this full time. That was 4 years ago. And now our company, manufactures a free vend tampon and pad dispenser that replaces those archaic coin-operated things. And we support companies like Google and Princeton and Penn State, all the way to middle schools, high schools, small businesses, and everything in between.
That's amazing.
Oh, whoops. Looks like I'm on mute. How's your experience been with actually starting the company?
Experience. Wow, really vast. When I started the company, I knew, like people said, it was going to be hard, but I never understood what that meant. I didn't understand that meant that pulling 20-hour days was the new normal. I didn't know that it meant that I was kind of going to miss my early 20s. I started the company when I was 18, and I've been on it ever since. And so I really missed those, college years or wherever. I still don't know how to drink. I missed that whole experience because I didn't graduate from college. And so I don't drink. And I have earned so many opportunities, but I missed out on a lot of things as well. And so I think that for me, growing the company was a really important decision that I made for myself, that I was going to make the decision to have opportunities that aren't the normal. And I didn't really know that that's what I was getting into when I was first starting the company. And God, is it hard.
All right, so you were 18 when you launched your company. So what are the pros and cons being a young entrepreneur?
I am really appreciative that I started young. I think I made a lot of risks that I wouldn't have made if I knew too much. And so I really operated with an ignorance is bliss mentality. If I knew how hard it was going to be, I wouldn't have started so early. If I knew that it was going to cost so much money, I would have been scared. If I knew all of these things, then I might not have just gone for it. And so that was the benefit of starting when I was young. I really had no idea what I was doing or getting into. And in addition to that, press really loves the young female entrepreneur story. And so as I grew my company, I really leaned on earned media to be able to grow our mission and to grow our brand. So those are definitely the benefits. There's a lot of negatives of running a company when you're 18. I'm very thankful that I found a strong group of friends. They're all 30 years older than me. They're all married. They're all kids. And so, when you're 18, I dropped out of college. My problems were not the same as other 18-year-olds. So finding that new group of friends and people that I could look to was difficult at first. And in addition to that, we did go on to raise $2.7 million in venture capital. And it's not, do we like this girl? It's, is this person with this business better than the thousands of other companies that VCs see? It's not just me against other 18-year-olds. It's me against all of the other opportunities. And so I had to not just be the best young entrepreneur. I needed to be the best. And that is a really high degree that I had to live up to early on.
Yeah, so that's really interesting because I think that pivots into our next question. I think, so from being 18 and really seeing a gap in the market and a challenge that you were kind of wrestling to now servicing Google and Princeton, you needed external capital to grow. So what was your process like fundraising when we understand disparities that exist for women entrepreneurs going out to raise money?
So my fundraising journey is pretty similar to a lot of other Midwesterners' fundraising journey. I started my company, I bootstrapped, I crowdfunded $25,000. That's what I used to purchase my first batch of inventory. I used that money to be able to grow my company to do about $250,000 a year in sales my first year in business. And I'm sharing with you numbers because it's really important to recognize, like, nobody shares numbers and it's like all just like this blurry mess. So that's why I'm sharing numbers. And we need to know, we need to have these conversations. So $250,000 first year. And with that made fundraising a bit easier because it was like, okay, this girl has like some money. She's doing these things. Like, it's not just like some cute, kitschy startup. It's like, oh, she has a business. So that was in 2018. At the end of 2018, I was really honored to be able to be accepted into the Techstars New York City program. I am from Ohio. I don't know anything about VC. I was just like, holy smokes, people give like all these boys in Silicon Valley money for like nothing. Like, what? If they can do it, I can do it too. And so I was really honored to be accepted into that program. I had applied 6 times. The final time that I got in, I lied on the application that I had a co-founder because not only, like, I have a laundry list of reasons people should not invest in me. I'm solo founder, female, was super young, like from Ohio. There was like the laundry list. And I got in because I said that I had a co-founder. Definitely didn't have a co-founder, but I got in. And that was the program that really helped me understand venture capital and the game that it is and the outcomes that VC venture capitalists expect. And I believe that my company had the kind of traction to be able to show the returns that VC investors were really looking to achieve. And that's how I crafted my pitch to be able to raise our seed round of 1.5 million. And then we went on to raise an additional 1.2 million for our seed plus round.
Wow. Were you part of any other programs such as Techstars?
I have been incredibly thankful to be a part of programs. I think as the benefit of being a female founder is there's a lot of programs. And if you're not applying to programs, I used to apply to a program a week. And that's actually how I initially met Michelle, was through the Tory Burch Foundation program. So that was obviously very fruitful. That's why I'm here today on this podcast. And then I was also really thankful to be awarded the Thiel Fellowship, which is a grant from Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal, for 20 entrepreneurs to drop out of college and pursue their innovative ideas. So that network was wonderful. And then eventually I also was awarded the Forbes 30 Under 30 honor, and that helped me build my network as well. So just a reminder, it took me 6 applications to get into Techstars. It took me 6 years to get into the Thiel Fellowship. I started applying when I was in high school. And so What all of this has taught me is you just have to relentlessly repeat yourself and relentlessly raise your hand and say, this is me and I'm worth it.
So, like, how do you use technology to enhance your product?
How do I use technology to enhance my product? So, I'm not a tech company. I'm a proud hardware company. People are like, when we were raising money, investors were always like, can't you add like a thingy-majiggy to the tampon to track XYZ? And I'm like, I want no thingy-majiggy in my tampon whatsoever. And so we are very much a hardware company, but we have tech from the standpoint of our hardware is innovative. So as I mentioned, we have a free then tampon and pad dispenser, and we have unique cartridges for our tampons and pads that are designed to fit our dispenser. So nobody can shove their own tampons in our dispenser. That's our business model. It's kind of like a razor blade model. We're able to achieve that recurring revenue through the throughput of the tampons and pads. And so our technology looks a little bit different than a software company. And our technology is our really unique patents.
So I think one of the things that I was really attracted to, and I've been following you on social media for a really long time, and I thought that, currently we are in the middle of a global pandemic, right? I have no idea what the world will look like after this is done. My hope is that we will live in a world that is kinder, where profit is not the only thing that people care about, but communities are at the center. And so one of the things I admired about you was the level of innovation that you've always had, but especially during this global pandemic. So can you tell us a little bit more about how AuntFlow kind of pivoted or launched your second company called Workflow, and why, where that idea came from and how you were able to mobilize so quickly?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we're a company that sells tampons and pads to businesses and schools. So when schools started closing and enterprises all went to work from home, our cool, hot business model wasn't so cool and hot anymore. And so we went from a pretty significant amount of recurring revenue to 30% of that, and then to about 15% of that. So the dramatic shift due to the pandemic was difficult for our company. In February, I had just raised our Seed Plus round. This was right before the pandemic. And we did have the option to just save that money and wait it out. But I am not the founder that just goes out looking. I like to go out swinging. I played softball for 13 years, and that's what it taught me. Don't be that person that's just looking at the ball and it's a strike and you miss it. Don't. You better swing. And so we took all of that money. We looked at, instead of the things that we didn't have, right? We didn't have like money coming in. We didn't have all this stuff, right? What we did have, though, is incredible connections with facilities managers across the United States. We did have a supply chain that manufactures Class 2 medical devices, and we're an FDA-approved importer for our menstrual pads. We had a lot of resources that we could pull on to be able to support our customers. And so we actually switched our pad production supply chain to start manufacturing FDA-approved 3-ply medical surgical masks. And we ramped it from 200,000 masks a week to 2 million masks a week. Wow. And now we support the state of Michigan, Veterans Affairs, Dominion Energy, middle schools, high schools, and hundreds of other companies all across the United States.
That's amazing, Claire. That makes me so happy to see how you are able to completely pivot. I think one of the things that I've seen is businesses are this is unprecedented times, right? And closing down is okay, but also being able to pivot, there's just so much innovation and being able to service folks that need these products that are kind of at the front line.
Yeah, at AuntFlow, we always talk about how we're flowing, right? You're always flowing forward. So our parent company is actually Flow Corporation. So we have AuntFlow, and then now our sister company is Workflow. There's so many other flows that we can have, but you're right. Whenever there are challenges, you just got to keep flowing.
Claire, earlier you mentioned that, early on you didn't have a co-founder. Can you tell us about more about how you built your team so far?
Mm-hmm. I still don't have a co-founder. There is no co-founder. There's a quote that my executive coach shared with me called "No one is coming." And it's the concept of so many times we find ourselves waiting for the man with a white horse that's going to come save the day. We find ourselves waiting to launch our company so that we can find a co-founder. We find ourselves waiting to go live on our website before everything's perfect. And no one's coming. It's all on you. And that was really true for me in my childhood. I'm an only child, and my family was nice, but it wasn't the best situation. And so I really had to rise to the occasion. That being said, building a team was really, really hard for me because I am so used to relying on myself for everything. And so as I've continued to grow the company, I've had to learn that I can't do everything by myself. And there are people that can do things better than me, but that has been a hard transition and a learning process for me as a founder. In terms of growing our team, though, I'm really thankful. We have a mighty team of 8 based here in Columbus, Ohio. They all bust their booties to make sure that everybody has access to basic necessities.
So one thing, like, how do you find your customers? Like, what do you use? What methodology or marketing do you use in order to get customers?
I love talking about sales. Sales is some of my favorite things. I think that every CEO has to love sales, especially startup CEOs. So many folks think that they're just going to hire a salesperson to spread their vision and get deals. We all know, as I said, no one is coming. Y'all better get your own revenue. And if you can't sell it, God help the person that's trying to sell your mission. And so for me, I really looked at the people that I knew first. We're a B2B company. We're a business that sells to other businesses. And in B2B sales, it is critical to have relationships. And so I wrote out my top 50 customers. Who would they be? I had my list, and this was based on what they could drive in terms of revenue, who the contacts were. The primary person was an HR, a director of facilities. If it was mid-level, maybe CEO. I wrote out each of them. I found their Twitter handles. I found their email addresses. I found their phone numbers. And then I built a relationship with them. I sent them letters. I sent them faxes. I was like, can I be your friend? And it was all about adding value to them before buy my shit, buy my shit, buy my shit. You have to add value before they buy from you because people buy from people. They don't buy from salespeople. And so that's how we initially got our first customers. There was no paid advertising budget. Remember, it was like a girl and her $25,000 worth of inventory, and that was it. And so it was really just based on relationships. And then those first 50 customers recommended us to our next 50 customers, who recommended us to our next 50 customers. And now we do more earned media. We dabbled in paid media, and we still don't. The team's always like, our investors are like, so when are you going to pay for ads? I'm like, not yet. Because we're just so hyper focused on the relationships that we have.
So one thing that I am fascinated, so as you talked about your seed series C, I think that's what you called it. So how were you able to have conversations with your investors, right? Like I think one of the things that I've seen that's been fascinating, and I think being an entrepreneur, you're like in an entrepreneurial ecosystem, so you see how businesses are constantly evolving, that if they're selling apples from at the beginning, they might end up like selling meat, right? Like, so you see so many businesses pivot. Like, how are you able to have that conversation with your investors to say, listen, this is an opportunity, let me move on this?
I am incredibly grateful that our cap table is filled with other entrepreneurs and operators who understand. They get it. They get that you have to adjust to the situation and pivot. And in addition to that, even the folks that aren't operators, we have a really strong level of trust. One of our core values at AntFlow is execute transparency. I've chatted with a variety of founders that don't want to share everything with their investors. They hide their cap tables from their teams. And that's just not how I operate. And because I operate with more transparency than nothing, our board generally knows what's going on. And so it makes the conversation a lot easier because it's no surprise that we would be running out of money. It's no surprise that we need to pivot. It's no surprise that 70% of our customers are not reordering because of the pandemic. And so I lean on our core values so that our conversations are easier.
Thank you, Claire. Are there any other technologies or businesses that fascinate you or inspire you to keep pushing forward?
Oh my gosh. I get giddy every time an entrepreneur reaches out to me, somebody that's young, that's really ready to hustle. And they're like, I have this idea. And I'm like, yes, our next generation of people. Yeah. And then I really just hope they don't get burnt out. And I'm like, I always vet people because some people are like, yeah, I want to start a business, and they don't understand how hard it is. And they're like, can I pick your brain? And I'm like, totally. Let's meet at 6 a.m. for a run and we can do that. Or if they are unable to run, I'm like, let's go for a walk. But at 6 a.m. because I think that that's a really important vetting system to understand like who's really in it and who's not. But in terms of who inspires me, it's really those people that will wake up at 6 a.m. and go on a run with me. And in addition to that, I have so much respect for other companies that are adjusting their business models to respond to the pandemic. This is not a time to pout. This is a time to grow and innovate.
That's a great point to leave it on. But what is something that you would like the listening audience to know? Any takeaways? Like, what would be some advice that you would offer to budding entrepreneurs?
My general advice is just keep fucking hustling. And so many folks have reached out to me and like, can you let me know what you think about this idea? And I'm like, look, ideas are like a dime a dozen. It is very few to find people that will take their idea and relentlessly advocate for it to turn it into something. So just keep fucking hustling.
How do you take care of yourself, Claire? Because I know that when I've seen you kind of move around, before we were able to still fly and travel, you were like from coast to coast. I know have some rental properties and you are running a business that's growing. Like, what are the things how do you find that balance so you won't burn out?
I have a hot take on life balance. I consider it, I love my work so much that it becomes my life, and that's the balance. My mom always told me growing up, do what you love and love what you do. And I love it so much that it's not exhausting. There are times though, as a founder, as a CEO, you find yourselves in ruts. I find myself in ruts and I realize like, holy smokes, I'm doing everything that I hate doing. Like I'm having to manage the books. Today I'm the bookkeeper. I have to manage HR. Everybody wants a freaking raise and they've only been here for a year. Like, come on. There's all of those moments. And in those moments specifically, I lean on my personal core values. I love running. I go for a run. I love water. I drink some water. I take a deep breath and then I keep it moving. And then I laugh. Like I laugh a lot. It's kind of scary for our team, but I do laugh a lot.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Claire. I have really enjoyed the conversation. We were really excited to have you on board, especially when I shared with Jerome and Sir Walter about the innovation that OnFlow was doing, especially to service kind of needs around COVID. And again, so grateful for your time and really excited to kind of have the opportunity to chat with you.
Mwah! Thank you.
Thanks, Claire.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Bye.
That wraps up this episode of the Disruptive Podcast by Minority Innovation Weekend. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. Check us out online at www.minorityinnovationweekend.org and connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. MIW 2020 is coming up on Saturday, October 3rd to the 4th, so head on over to www.minorityinnovationweekend.org and register for MIW 2020 today.